All right, guys, this next section is going to be from a table. So there are two different tables you're going to be introduced to, one that is going to be horizontal and one that's vertical. Pause it and go ahead and copy this down, please, and then resume, and we'll start talking about it. All right, so your slope, whenever we talk about from a table, what I'm about to show you goes with everything. It's your slope is going to be your change in y over your change in x. And this applies, that's what you're doing whenever you're subtracting the y's and the x's from points, coordinates, it's exactly what you're doing. When you're rising and you're running, it's exactly what you're seeing. What is the change between the two y and x coordinates? Here, what I want to introduce you to is what this actually looks like. We have change in y. Instead of saying change, we use a little triangle, delta, meaning change in y. And this will be over your change in x. Notice again, y is always on the top in the numerator, okay? When you look at the table, the first thing you need to identify is where x and y is. This kind of table can get very confusing because the first row up here at the top is actually going to consist of your x coordinates. And the number sold, let's just say this is how many CDs are sold, at a record store. Okay, 7 are sold in 2 weeks. Well, that 2 weeks in the weeks is represented by your x. The y is down here. This is the opposite of what you see up here. So you have to be very, very careful, and please label x and y. Use your notes when you're using your activities. Okay? So if we want to look at your slope with your change in x and change in y, we could take a look at, we want change in y on top. Sorry, I misspoke there. Change in y on top. So let's take a look. Well, your y's are down here. So we need to look at what is the change between your y's. From 7 to 10, what happened? We added 3. And it should be consistent for it to be a linear equation, for the slope to go into a linear equation, a line. This is a plus 3. So your change in y is a positive 3. When we go to your change in x, which is on bottom, you go up to your x coordinates and say, okay, what happened here? We added 2 each time. So then the 2 goes down here. There is no need to substitute 3 over 2. You're done. Here is your slope. Okay? I'm going to show you the next table. I need you to pause it and write it down, please. We are now going to go horizontally with the table. And pause and copy this down. With this table, we are still doing our change in y over change in x. And just like your coordinates start with x, when your table looks like this, and this is vertically, where our x is going to come first, then our y. So when we take a look at our slope, we have our change in y on top. So go to your y side. Now I need you to make sure that you have copied this down exactly as you see it. Something did change between the two tables and the y with the y's. Here, when we do our change of y, we notice the sales are actually going down. So what did we do between 13 and 10? We subtracted 3. Between 10 and 7, we subtracted 3. So what this ends up being is our change in y comes out to a negative 3 because we subtracted the 3. Okay? So then we look at our change in x, and we see from 2 to 4, we still added 2. Here, we still added 2. So we put the positive 2. So what this winds down to is, again, if one of these is negative, the whole entire slope is negative. So we wind up with a negative 3 over 2. Okay?